the flamboyance of the swinging 30s to the hardships of the Second World War, Westerners in Hong Kong were witness to sweeping change as they watched the British colony develop from a sleepy outpost to a booming port and a thriving metropolis. During the early colonial era, social conventions and forms of entertainment were exported from England, although serving to reinforce a sense of Britishness and cultural separation. Such social traditions were important in engendering a home away from home.
The hotels, like the Hong Kong Hotel, the Peninsula, and the Gloucester used to have dances every evening, and you'd dance until 7.
And what kind of dances? Just
ballroom.
Ballroom.
Oh yes, yes, very elegant ballroom dancing. And the last tune they used to play was "Good Night, Sweetheart."
And then, of course, the big thing was St George's Ball, which was at the Peninsula. So we used to parade down from the ballroom, down those big wide stairs, all decorated with roses. We used to do that the day before. Real roses from England.
You know, and I was playing in a band on weekends and doing what they called tea dances in those days, which were afternoon sessions on Saturday, Sunday from about 4 to 6 o'clock in the afternoon, where all the teenage kids would go and do the latest dances and we would play all the latest songs.
We used to go out by train and we were picked up at Shum Shui, I think, Shum Shui, with a pedicycle, and driven to the clubhouse. And very, very strict, no mingling with the men.
On Christmas Day, 1941, the Japanese captured Hong Kong and Britain lost control of its Chinese colony for almost 4 years. Most British people were imprisoned. Many women and children were repatriated overseas, whilst others fled Hong Kong.
I've only got a couple of memories of the camp, and one of the memories was looking down a very steep stairwell, which was quite dark, and there was a soldier at the bottom of it, a Japanese soldier at the bottom of it. In actual fact, what my mother said was he was offering cigarettes, and she and her friends said, "Go on, just go down and get cigarettes."
My father was with the volunteers. He was actually on the border when the Japanese came across, and he was in the engineers section, and their job was to lower bridges to slow down the Japanese advance.
Well, my mother, my sister and I were evacuated to Australia, but we went to the Philippines first aboard the Empress of Asia with a lot of the other women and children, and we were there 6 weeks, and then eventually moved on to Sydney.
We shared a cabin. Your father gave up his bunk during the crossing from Hong Kong to Shanghai so that my mother, my sister and I would have somewhere to sleep. We had to avoid American mines, so they would zigzag.
From zipping through Beijing in a sports car during the Cultural Revolution to missionary work in the walled city, a Westerner's experience and his role in Hong Kong society was extremely diverse.
It was through Barbara that I met David Wilson, who later became governor here. And David was a language student in Beijing. And he drove me across Tiananmen Square with his red Austin Healey with the roof down. And all you could see is bicycles, one bicycle after the other, and few buses, and virtually no cars. And it was quite a stir when that red Austin Healey was driving across the Tiananmen Square.
But just round the corner was one of the places where I lived and had the original youth club, which was beaten up. And that's where the first drug addict came off drugs.
We were forbidden to play with the kids in the street outside the dockyard, and likewise down on the beach we could. And I'm sure there was some bogus excuse that these kids have got disease or something, but it was It was a racially prejudiced thing, there's no doubt.
I was conscripted into the police, the auxiliary police. Anyway, in 1956, someone rang me up in the middle of 11 o'clock at night. They said, a bit of trouble over in Kowloon, you'll have to turn out. And I said, when? They said, no, you'll have to come now. He said, the riots are a bit anti-British. They're rather anti-British as well. And I think they were to a large extent. Because, as I say, the army turned out. The army had to be turned out, which it wasn't turned out in 1967.
And on the whole, I've never regretted staying in the Far East all this time, because you saw the end of the British Empire and gradual independence coming to various countries, and travel becoming more possible for quite humble people, and all sorts of big changes happening, and that was very, very interesting indeed.